I am Mark Sutphin, a Virginia Cooperative Extension Agent in Frederick County, Virginia, and I'm serving as your moderator today. We have just a few things to cover before we start. Please use the Q&A box, not the chat box, to ask questions during the presentation. We will get to as many of those as possible during the time allotted. After the presentation, you can access additional materials, such as a copy of the PowerPoint or a handout, by following the link under Handouts and Other Materials on the Canvas page. This section appears just below the Zoom link that you used to join this session this afternoon. If something happens during the session with the Zoom technology and you are not able to listen or watch the session, it is being recorded and will be available for viewing on the Canvas course site within 72 hours. This is true of all of our sessions during Master Gardener College. Closed captioning will be available for our recorded sessions within 7 days. At this time, I'd like to introduce our speaker this afternoon, Dr. Holly Scoggins. Dr. Scoggins retired from Virginia Tech in January of 2020 after 20 years in the Department of Horticulture with teaching, research, and a cooperative extension responsibility. Her research focused on nursery production of perennials as well as field production of hops. She served as director of Virginia Tech's Hahn Horticulture Garden from 2002 to 2014. Her latest adventure is as Director of Educational Programs for American Hort, the national professional association with nearly 14,000 members and affiliate businesses. She also serves as President-elect of the National Perennial Plant Association. And going off script, Holly and her husband also run their own Pick Your Own blueberry farm, and today was opening day. So Holly, I'm very excited that you were able to join us this afternoon, and I'll kick it over to you.
Thank you, Mark. And yes, y'all excuse me if I'm a little baggy-eyed after many hours with the general public, but it went very well. And everybody was masked up and happy to pick blueberries. And yeah, it went well. Anyway, I am delighted to be here. I miss you all. Miss you. This is so hard doing it from my living room, live here from Beeberry Farm. But I really do miss seeing y'all from the big stage at Torgerson. So please settle in. I'm going to talk for a bit on some of my favorite plants. What a novel idea that is. I'm excited to talk plants. It's been a wonderful year for gardening. That's about the only wonderful thing going so far, but gardening's been good. And if you'd like to listen in more on a great discussion that Dave Close and I are going to have on Sunday afternoon at 2:30, we're going to do gardens and gardening. Yes, we make a difference as kind of the closing session. So, but this is where I get to let my inner plant geek out. So join me, won't you? So, as we've all been living in Zoom world and webinar world and all that. I don't know about you, but this is what my eyeballs look like at the end of the day. We do have a cicada hatch here in Southwest Virginia. And so the little cutie pies are everywhere. And I do like them, but he looks like I feel, honestly. So, I'm hoping y'all are laughing out there. This is so hard. Oh, thank you, Mark. All right, what are we going to do today? Herbaceous perennials, some ornamental grasses. I've got a few annuals and tropicals. Got some factoids for you, of course, some maintenance, some growing tips. Just lay a bunch of knowledge on you. And what do I mean by extroverts? I took this very loosely. One of those things, it's either bold and eye-catching, it's going to take up space in the best possible way, and I will let you know if it has some sort of tendencies to be a little bit rambunctious too. And I'm sure people will weigh in the Q&A about that. Like, what? No, don't ever plant that. It's my opinion. Or it's a top-notch garden performer that I think you can't garden without. So with that, it's either going to fall into one of these categories. It could be new, it could be old, fairly common, weird, kind of open season here. All right, so I always start out my plant talks with this. Deer resistance is a continuum. So I know most everybody has deer issues. If you don't, wow, starting to have more here. If you want a deer-proof garden, your selection choice is daffodils, hellebores, and boxwoods, which is not they're all great plants, but not the best garden. So I will let you know if something is deer resistant. Part of my plant palette and plant favorites right now is very much influenced by beekeeping. So we've been doing honeybees for quite a while, as many of y'all know. And so I'm always interested in things that honeybees like, that other pollinators like. Again, we've got over 2 acres of you-pick blueberries, and most of our native bees are the primary pollinators for that. So butterflies, bees, all that stuff, we love pollinators. So yeah, try to garden for the bees and the pollinators every chance we get. Just a few resources. I'm all about the resources. If you're interested in finding out whether something's native or not, and exactly where it's native to, the plantsUSDA.gov site is super useful for that. Many of y'all are aware of that as well. Also, what's called BONAP, the Biota of North America program, has even more detailed county by county, and so where USDA gets a lot of their information from as far as their maps go. But this BONAP website's not quite as easy to use as the USDA one. Cold hardiness zones, always important when we're talking about perennials. My experience is coming from the Blacksburg area. We're at 2,100 feet here. In fact, we're a little bit above that. I'm in Newport in Giles County. So we're 6B, maybe 6A. It was more like 7A this winter, very strange. Anyway, that's kind of where I'm coming from. And I'll be letting you know zones when they're important. So just a glimpse of one of our perennial borders. Our gardening style is cram more plants in a small space. That's all I'm going to say about that. Most plants packed into a space. All right, so order of business as I get into perennials. Most of these are going to be at least minimum zone 5. So for our Virginia attendees, this is all good for you. I know we've got folks from all over the country on here, so I'll try to be cognizant of that. So I'm going to talk about some awesome foliage stuff first, and then some amazing flowers. As Mark mentioned, perennial plant of the year is a big deal to me, as I've been a long time Perennial Plant Association member and board member and incoming president. And we just did a joint seminar yesterday with Fine Gardening magazine. So that was pretty exciting. And I got to talk about some of my favorite perennial plants of the year. And I'm obviously going to tell you about those 2 today. All right, so I'm going to kick it off with the 2020 Perennial Plant of the Year. And this is voted on by a professional association of gardeners, landscapers, growers, plant breeders, the whole 9 yards, garden communicators as well. Aurelia cordata Sun King. This is not a new plant, but it is a fabulous plant. Big, bold, gold. You just can't beat it for kind of a tropical look. It's dead hardy, zones 3 to 9, so you can grow it anywhere. It does best in part shade, but you do need a little bit of sun to get that really gold pop, or it'll green out a little bit. And also need to water it during a really heavy drought. It will get crispy a little bit. Walter's Gardens up in Michigan is a great wholesale perennial nursery, and they've been promoting it for a long time as well. So you can just see the mass on that thing. So we're talking, 2, 3, 4 feet, depending on the growing conditions, and as wide. You got to wait on this plant a little bit. You're going to buy it at the garden center. It's going to say 3 to 4 to 5 feet on the tag. Get all excited, and then you sit there. Well, give it a couple years. It'll be fine. And again, some water will help it along. So that's you too can have this big whopping plant. And this is one of my favorite combinations. Made me look like I knew what I was doing. Planted it in front of a blood-good type Japanese maple. So really made that color pop. It does flower and it does attract pollinators. It also forms little purple drupes and that the birds enjoy as well. Doesn't seem to reseed. I've heard a couple of people say they've seen tiny seedlings, but on an industry level, we would not be promoting it if it was an issue. All right, Yucca filamentosa color guard. This is a plant that I am a huge fan of. I have it all over the place. Buy it in large quantities. It's just the best accent plant. As you probably know, Yucca filamentosa is a native to most of this area. It forms big green clumps. Color guard has this wonderful gold stripe at the middle that really makes it pop. A mature clump of Yucca filamentosa color guard will get 3 feet and is wide. Deer don't care for it, yay. And it does okay in part shade. I've got it probably in some places that are shadier than I think it would do well. So it's not a cactus. I mean, it can do fine in shade. Chicken for scale. This is one I just planted last spring. So it's still smaller size. And those of you who know me know there will be chicken images with my plants. Filamentosa. I love it when a specific epithet actually means something, and you can be like, "Whoa, look, filaments." So, yep, lots of great photos of that. All right, Mayaples. I love Mayaples. I love so many of our native wildflowers and such, but I've also had to pull scads of it out of the garden. We've got a spot at the Han Horticulture Garden in the back shade area that it has taken over. I've had issues with it at home too. And again, this is, it's a wonderful native, but it does spread by rhizomes and can be aggressive, especially in really rich garden soil. So I offer a alternative. Chinese mayapple. It has huge glossy green leaves. It does not spread. It's very slow, and it will form this lovely clump. Gorgeous foliage, slow spreader. It's not tremendously cold hardy, but definitely in zone 6, and it can take the heat. So just some images of that. There it is popping up out of the ground. It's very exciting when it comes up. Looks like little parasols. And you can see how it's different in that the flowers aren't underneath the foliage. So little black dog for scale. Oh, this makes me sad. We lost a little BB in March. Like this year, not enough happened. Whew. So, but you can. I'm pointing at the computer like y'all can see. Tremendous plant, and again doesn't spread. It just looks awesome. The flowers instead of the one single like we have with the Podophyllum peltatum, it's got this little cluster of red flowers that are kind of cool. So again, love both of them very much. I'm just a little hesitant to use. Love putting mayaples out in the fence line or parts of the garden that are not inhabited by other plants, but it can get out of hand. All right, another wonderful, vigorous native, Asarum canadense, Canadian ginger or deciduous ginger or whatever, is just the best ground cover ever. If you've got a shady spot, It is fantastic. It can be aggressive. Again, it's rhizomatous spreader. We have many, many 100 square feet of it along our creek here where it is just found wild. So I've lifted a bit and moved up to the garden where it is strangling some other things. But if you've got like that kind of foundation shrub type situation and need something to roam around, you've got that bonus that it is really tough and native as well. It will be deciduous. It's not evergreen. Oh, and do not eat it. It's not that kind of ginger. So wide range of, this is from the Bone App map, a wide range of nativeness. Just a shot with the European ginger next to it that is evergreen, but you can see how large the Serum canadense foliage is. Flowers are insignificant. They're very cool. Worth in the spring kind of looking under the leaves to see them, but the little furry urn shape flower. There's a little better close-up of it. Pollinated by ants, which makes sense since it's so close to the ground. So there it is, popping up amongst some things. Kind of iridescent leaves. I mean, the foliage is really great. And mixed in with some other woodland perennials. And there it is mugging another plant that I'm going to talk about in a minute. Our gold heart, bleeding heart, and that's right up here. I wish I could just take the computer around the yard here and just do a live thing. I've been on several live garden tours there that kind of make you a little motion sick. So, but all right, Helleborus hybridus. I'm like, wow, this is not a new plant or an unusual plant. But it is fantastic, and it is, to me, the extrovert of February. I mean, I love going out there and seeing the hellebores, and there's so many now. It's just fantastic, all the cultivars and the series that are out there. Just a workhorse. Blooms last so long. I've still got plants out there that have the sepals still intact, and this is what, yeah, end of June. It can reseed around. Really, they usually just drop the seeds right around them, and you can just kind of dig them up, move them around as they're small. As most of you know, I'm sure it takes several years to go from seed to bloom for hellebores. All right, so if you, back to our deer proof, yes, if you hate deer, and this was a fabulous license plate right here in Blacksburg. I still don't know whose vehicle this is, but yes, we do. But this is definitely deer proof. And if somebody puts in the Q&A, I've had deer eat my hellebores, we need to talk offline. If they took a nibble, that might be it, but they didn't go back. So anyway, wide range of flower colors, doubles, singles, all kind of stuff happening. And this is a discussion we were having yesterday in the Perennial Plant Association webinar is what happened to Helleborus orientalis. That is a species, and that's kind of what, when all the hellebore madness started almost 2 decades ago. This was something that there was some argument about, and what was coming into the marketplace was not just Helleborus orientalis. There are many hybrids. The hybrids in the Helleborastum subgenus, say that 3 times fast, they are easy to hybridize. So there's lots of things going on with that by the breeders. So you may still see the occasional tag that says Helleborus orientalis. It is probably not. If you want to know everything there's to know about hellebores, we've got the book that came out, I guess it's been around for maybe 8 years or so now. Colson Burrell and the wonderful and late Judith Tyler wrote this, and it's fantastic. It's really a great monograph on hellebores, easy to read, lots of cool species you probably never knew existed. So within this area, so within Virginia and West Virginia, we've got 2 hellebore breeders, Pine Knot Farms down in Clarksville, and also Sunshine Farms, Berry Glick over in West Virginia, 2 counties over uh, north of here. So lots of neat things. If you'd like to learn more about how hellebore breeding works, Hans Hansen at Walter's Gardens, wonderful plant breeder, has put many things out there that you probably have in your garden that you didn't know he bred. Just an incredibly knowledgeable plantsman up at Walter's. So this is a great video if you ever want to see how the magic happens for hellebores. Just sharing one of my favorite right now, and this is kind of outside the hybridus range, but Penny's Pink. If you have it, you're nodding, going, ah, yes. Look at that foliage, the variegation in it. It's got some lividus, other species in it, but it is hardy and long blooming and substantial. Look at all the flowers, that beautiful dusky rose. I put it with epimedium pink chimes, and again, very small victories as far as plant combinations for me. And I was like, oh, I did that on purpose. Look at me go. Just a couple of maintenance notes on hellebores. If you don't know, especially if you're in an area that gets harsher winters, do trim that foliage back. You want your stems to be able to, and do that before they start emerging. So that way you've got your nice clean stems and flowers coming up, and you don't have a bunch of ratty old brown foliage. If you don't have tough winters, your foliage might look fine and just be evergreen and glossy and stuff. But in Blacksburg, it tends to take a beating. Sepals persist. These aren't actually petals. You can see the inflated seed pods there where that one was pollinated. All right, moving on, I'm gonna take a little sip of tea here. Asclepias tuberosa, what a wonderful plant for your garden. I'm sure everybody that's been to a native perennial talk has heard about this plant or is growing it. This was our 2017 perennial plant of the year. It was a smashing success on all levels, and everybody has it now. Widely native. It can't get more native than that. And pretty much the gateway plant for pollinator awareness. So much great information out there on from the Xerces Society, from the monarch awareness networks and organizations. Really what happened was it's in such high demand that there was a shortage and people really wanted it, and nurseries were trying to crank it out as fast as possible. It's not the easiest crop to grow in a container type setting, but they are trying to get more out there because everybody's selling all they have all the time, and retailers are like, more. But know that there are many really nice Asclepias species out there. So if you love this, I encourage you to start browsing around and finding some of the other ones that are in the trade. Really fantastic. Just a note about Asclepias, late to emerge. I've always heard this, and then I experienced it myself when in my desire to put in something in what I thought was a bare spot. I dug it out. I was like, oh no. And there were little fuzzy buds coming up through the, kind of look like little fuzzy thumbs coming up through the soil. Everything else was already up and out. So gently pushed it back in and said, all right, you stay. But just keep that in mind. Maybe put a little tag there. I'm going to do that this year. Yeah. It does have a taproot. It doesn't care to be transplanted. You can if you get a bunch of soil and stuff, but just keep that in mind. And it does self-seed around. Just butterflies visiting one of our many patches there. Oh, this was down in Georgia. I was visiting a family a couple weeks ago, and just right on our farm near Athens, giant clumps everywhere. I was thrilled to see it there. One of my colleagues, there's his meadow garden in the northern neck. If you've been to Chanticleer in Pennsylvania, their gravel or scree garden has tons of it, and they just let it go with several other species. So just the magenta and the orange really pop. You can't beat Asclepias seeds with their little parachutes, so go flying off. But that's one of the reasons why it does move around a lot. So it may not be right where you thought you put it. And you get milkweed bugs and aphids, and that's part of the deal. I have had gardeners say, I really want to have this plant for the monarchs, but what can I use to get rid of the milkweed bugs and the aphids? And you kind of can't do that. So you got to have, unless you want to go out there with soapy water or something, I think you're going to have to just live with it. It's just part of the festival of circle of life out there, I guess. All right. Allium Millennium. This was our 2018 perennial plant of the year. If you're not gardening with these little guys, you need to be. They are incredible. And that is the registered spelling. Most people spell Millennium with 2 N's, but the cultivar is registered under that name. So it's not a problem. So you're probably familiar with the bulbous type was it Glowmaster? Gosh, sorry, tired. Can't remember the name of it. Anyway, the big honking purple, ornamental onions, and those the bulbs can run from kind of ping pong ball size up to a baseball or something. These ornamental onions are more rhizomatous. They are bulbs. But they spread a little differently. Oh, we have allium trials out at the Urban Hort Center, and that was fun. Like, look, it is the size of a baseball. So I dug this one up out in the garden a couple days ago so you can see the root system. They do look like little green onions. They're pretty pungent. I did nibble a stem, but I wouldn't substitute them for scallions or anything like that. But you can see how it kind of forms this nice clump. And has a nice fibrous root system. So Millennium itself was, I don't know if I have a, let's see. It was a breeding effort by Mark McDonough, who was actually an architect, but did a whole lot of breeding of various taxa. And so this came out maybe a decade or so ago. It's very cold hardy. Bit of shade's okay. It's not gonna flop or anything like that. Bees love it. And the thing about these rhizomatous onions are they are usually early to midsummer bloomers. Most of the big whoppers are that you think of with your bulbous type are spring bloomers. So this is nice in the middle of the summer. There's a lot of cultivars out there besides Millennium. You can use it in massing. You can use it kind of scattered in a more casual planting. It's a wonderful architectural plant. So that to me is fantastic. Even the seed heads are beautiful as it gets into the winter. So leave all your seed heads up. Those of you who know me know I'm a proponent of that. So Summer Beauty is a really common one. It's got a bit more pink to it. Pink Planet looks very similar. Windy City is another one that they use the heck out of up in the Chicago area. This was at Chicago Botanic Garden where they have the allium trials. So anyway, awesome plant, and again, deer resistant. One of my top extrovert plants is Pycnanthemum muticum mountain mint. Use it everywhere. This goes into the extrovert rambunctious category. It does not spread as bad as a regular mint, like a spearmint or something like that. It is better behaved than that, but put it somewhere thoughtful, like that it's not going to mug everything. But it is fantastic. Beautiful frosty bracts. blooms mid to late summer. You will have every pollinator in the Tri-County area on this plant. So there is not, I don't think, a better pollinator plant if you just enjoy watching things. And it's not just butterflies and honeybees, it's everything. Everything that has that loves nectar and pollen is going to be on this. So about up to 3 feet or so. Again, it's not a tiny mint, so just be thoughtful when you site it. It can do sun to part shade just fine. This is a video. I'm hoping this comes across right outside the door here, where you can see all the things, all the things on it. Beetles, bees, wasps, everything. All right, another fantastic native. So silphiums. And again, this is a plant that I've been trying to encourage people to get to know a little better. I've had several trips out garden geeking in the Midwest and the upper Midwest, and it's just pretty common there, both in fields and in gardens. But it's a wonderful garden plant. Not for small gardens though. And it does reseed a little bit around, depending on the species. But pollinators love it. It's just a wonderful structural plant. That's obviously shown in a natural setting there. The garden doesn't look quite that shaggy. Silphium perfoliatum. This is again an extrovert in all ways. It's big, it's coarse, it's fun. It's got these big square stems and clasping leaves that collect water. Great for a kid's garden. Bees love it in bloom. If you don't want it reseeding around, just once it's bloomed, just snip off those seed heads, or you will be pulling up little bits of it around. So again, statuesque, I like to call it. I love tall plants, and but you do need to give it some space. A little different style is the prairie dock. Terebinthinaceum, say that again. That has a basal foliage. It doesn't go up the stem, so just the basal foliage, very coarse. I took this photo just the other night outside, and you can see the Nicotiana behind it, so you can see how large the leaves are. So it makes this wonderful, coarse basal foliage. And then the stems will go 8-9 feet tall. And it's the ultimate see-through plant. It's really tall, very graceful, strong stems too. And this is right outside the door, and hasn't bloomed yet here. This is from last summer. But there's our little humble abode. But look how spectacular that is. And everyone that comes by is like, what is that? Not a really common plant here in Virginia, but if you can get some, plant it. I believe Saunders Brothers is growing it. So if your favorite garden center happens to carry Saunders Brothers product, you can get it there. All right, so this is just a bonus because I don't believe it's on your plant list. I was like, well, what if somebody doesn't have room for all that? Rudbeckia maxima, giant coneflower, kind of gives you that same effect, but without being 10 feet tall and 4 feet wide. So get the nice, airy, see-through stems. Pollinators love it. Really great Rudbeckia, but smaller scale than the silphium. All right, Phlox paniculata, garden phlox, been around forever, right? Nothing new there. However, I've got 2 selections that I've been very excited about that have recently come out. One of the issues, obviously, with phlox paniculata, garden phlox, is gets powdery mildew like crazy. We've already got it on a lot of cultivars around here. I'm not sure how you're doing where you are. This was just at a nursery, but it's a great straggly shot with powdery mildew everywhere. Phlox paniculata Gina is outstanding mildew resistant in the Mount Cuba trials and also at Chicago Botanic Garden. It was an excellent performer at Mount Cuba. They also did pollinator counts on the cultivars to see which ones were being visited the most. And Gina won hands down. And if you look at it, it's kind of obvious why. Pollinators, they've got to be able to get to the nectar, and it's got much smaller flowers than some of the other cultivars out there. So easy for the little guys to get the nectar out. So you'll see, regular Phlox paniculata, you'll see a lot of butterflies on, but this one gets more bees and things like that. But just a lovely kind of lavender shade. Works with a lot of different things, 3 to 4 feet tall. And again, if you're more interested in it, go to the Mount Cuba website. They've got tons of information on all kind of native plants. So great resource for you. But this is a lot more people are growing this, and without giving anything away, I'm strongly thinking that this will probably be like the 2022 perennial plant of the year. People love it. Growers love it. Retailers love it. Gardeners love it. All right. Fashionably early crystal. This is kind of something completely different as well. It's an early blooming phlox, so it's kind of white. Everybody's familiar with Phlox paniculata David, which is your typical midsummer white blooming phlox, a little bit taller. This is a little more compact, about 3 feet or so, quite mildew resistant. It remains white for several weeks and starts getting a little bit of a pinkish cast to it, but it's been blooming here since mid-May or so, and still has scads blooms. And every time I see it, there's butterflies hanging off it everywhere. So this is right outside in our own garden. No chicken for scale in that, chicken was below it. But you can see the lovely white cloud-like heads of Phlox, fashionably early crystal. So strongly recommending that one, really great. All right, so I've been flogging Goldheart for a long time, and hopefully you have it by now. But if we're talking about extroverts, I can't skip over that. It's so cold hardy, so tough. I swear it is almost more vigorous than the straight species, and it's just a wonderful spring ephemeral. The foliage will kind of melt out midsummer or so, but it really pops. You've got your magenta flowers, gold foliage. It just makes me happy every spring. Everything's so busy, and it's like, well, there it goes again, and I'm so happy that I have it. And clumps can get 3 feet across or so if they are happy and your deciduous ginger isn't mugging it. So I have about 100 photos of it, and I will not share all those with you. But anyway, I love gold foliage. I'm not alone in that. Lots of people do. But I think amongst a lot of green, it can really pop. Oh, look, more gold foliage. Persicaria and plexicalis, gold narrow. Now, this is unusual. This is not so easy to find. There's a lot of mail order nurseries that will carry it. If you do see it in the garden center, snarf it up, send me a message, and I'll get more of it too. Glorious gold foliage, magenta flowers that form cute little spikes, part sun. It gets, again, a lot of these gold plants, except for Goldheart, tend to green out a bit in the shade. So this is best with a little bit of sun, and it also is best with a little bit of moisture. It's not I wouldn't put it in the drought tolerant category, but it's worth it. If you've got a decent bed with good organic matter, pop it in there. And this photo is from our friend Alyssa Steve's garden, and yes, that is a variegated pokeweed in the background, which is rare and hard to find as well. So the photo on, and I can't tell if it's on your left or your right, the one with the dog is in Alyssa's garden. The one without the dog and without the flowers is out front that I just took in our garden a couple days ago. It hasn't started blooming yet, but you can see the wonderful kind of sea of um, golden foliage. So I can't wait for it to bloom. We had a little drought of a few weeks, and I kept hitting it with a hose just a little bit because I want it to flourish. Oh, this is just what the non golden cultivar looks like. So, all right. Wonderful in mass plantings too. This is great. All right. And now this is completely a bizarre extrovert for you. I think this is one of the coolest hardy perennials you can grow. It's not for everyone. Blooms over a week or so. Mine just finished blooming. This is the one at the Hahn Horticulture Garden, but we have it as well. And if you have grown this plant, you know what happens when it blooms. It smells like it's roadkill. I mean, it is super smelly. So I was looking all around as I do every year. I forget it's out there because it's kind of buried amongst stuff. And I'm like, oof, what is out here under the deck? And there it is. It's been blooming. So there was right before it bloomed out in our garden. And as the flower was about to unfurl and release its lovely fragrance, but it is fun and it's really cool. Kids obviously are going to be attracted to it. Like, what's that? And you'll see all kind of flies and beetles and all kind of things that are attracted to it because of the PU scent. So if you're into trying different things and want to either impress or startle your gardening friends, get some of this. Brent and Becky's bulbs usually have some in stock, and there's a few other mail order nurseries that have it as well. All right, with that, I'm going to take a breath. I'm also going to move my stand-up desk down so I can have a seat as my back begins to seize up on me from running amok all day. So Mark, if you've got any few questions that I can answer whilst I rearrange things here.
Yes, we do. So going back to Canadian ginger, the question was, how early does the Canadian ginger leaf out to discourage weeds?
All right, hold on. It is really early, and it is so cool when it's coming up. I know I have a photo somewhere. All right, sitting. Sorry. Having fun with the power desk. It's pretty darn early. And even our little wild stand down at the creek is one of the first things to start popping. I'd say late March, again, here in the Berg. So you can see where it's coming up. And it's also a great time to divide it, which you will want to divide it and share. Share with your friends.
A couple hellebores questions. Can they be divided? Are they poisonous?
Hellebores they're poisonous in that there are alkaloid compounds within them, just like there are in many other plants here in the garden. Mostly they are these compounds serve to deter foraging by rabbits and deer and things. So they'll take a nibble and it's like very not tasty at all. I have nibbled myself and I am still here. Just because I want to be sure when I'm telling people stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of plants that are poisonous. But yeah, just don't eat it. But that's again why the deer and the rabbits don't bother it. So can you divide it? You can. It needs to be a pretty mature clump. And they are, the hellebores hybridus are what's called acaulescent. So they're sending up stem. There's a stem with a leaf, there's a stem with a flower. And kind of as they start coming out, you can kind of see where to put your spade. You want to make sure it's a big enough clump that you're not just cutting off one chunk of a leaf or something, because it will not transplant well. But yeah, once it gets rolling, yes. Long story short.
Another question, can you please explain species, cultivar, and hybrid?
Okay, that's a longer conversation. uh, uh, Species is a subdivision of a genus that is been determined to be able to reproduce by seed and stay the same. So species is that division right below genus, which is right below family. Cultivar is a cultivated variety. This is something that could have been discovered by someone, you know, hey, here's pink and it should have been purple. You know, this is a selected. Cultivars are usually vegetatively propagated. They could be hybridized. Yeah, so what was the third question?
Hybrid.
What's a hybrid? It's a hybrid. Usually if I say it's a hybrid, it's interspecific. Usually there's something where, like Hellebore's hybridus is a name given. There's, you know, Petunia hybrida, two or more species are often involved. So there are some that cross easier than others. So that's the fun world of plant breeding. All right.
We've got a few more. Do you wanna move on or take?
I probably ought to move on for just, let's see, what do we got? Yeah, I gotta get through my.
Okay.
Let me get through ornamental grasses and we'll pop back over. Thank you. Okay, just got a few of these and we'll get through those and then we'll take more questions and it can be back on perennials. So great questions, thank you. Okay, so these are great performers, often with bold foliage and just top-notch plants. There's all good, all great stuff. So Sporobolus heterolepis, prairie dropseed. This was kind of new. Well, it's been around forever. It is a part of the tallgrass prairie ecosystem, but it's also native as far east as here. And very tough once it's established. Beautiful fall color, very cool flower spikes that actually have a very neat scent to them. If you've been around when it's flowering at this stage, it's kind of it's almost a vanilla cilantro, which sounds kind of gross, but it's cool. Kind of a neat fragrance to it. Oh, look, I was thoughtful enough to put the banana app up. Yes, so widely native. Beautiful tussocks of fine foliage are formed that are very well behaved, stays in this wonderful clump and looks great, and then it flowers. And then when fall comes, you get fabulous fall color, just bronze and peach and apricot, a little bit of gold touching it. So we've got wonderful masses of it out in the meadow at the Hahn Horticulture Garden at Virginia Tech. So it's just really it's a great kind of mixer plant until fall, when it really stands out and the fall color persists for quite a while, and you can leave it up all winter, like with many grasses, for wonderful winter structure. So this was a huge planting at Chanticleer Garden in Wayne, Pennsylvania. They don't do anything on a small scale. They put out just waves and waves of it that were just fantastic a couple years later. So kind of an interesting monoculture planting, but I adored it. I went and rolled around out there in the field. I love it. Not really, but it was close. Oh, and you can do this. So this is like fun with grasses in January when it is time to cut them back, right? So I did that for my students. They enjoyed that. Muhly grass, pink muhly grass to be specific, native across the entire southeast. Um, Max hardiness zone 6. I've heard some folks grow it in 5B, but they have outstanding drainage. Even here in zone 6, it needs good drainage if you want it to persist. It's not going to be happy in a heavy clay or undrained soil. But if you can give it the proper site, you will be rewarded by one of the most spectacular fall grass shows that you can get, and everyone that sees it just adores it. Again, widely native. Doesn't look like much when it's not blooming. That's the one downside. It's just sort of, in fact, I've actually pulled chunks up before thinking it was some fescue, and I was like, oh no, wait. So this is just a nursery setting, but it's just kind of green and grassy looking. To put it somewhere where there's some other things happening, but then you get that explosion of blooms in September and October that you just can't beat. And you can't even hardly take a picture of it. It's just so, the seed heads are so teeny tiny. So I've seen it used so many cool ways, and I adore it. Again, just be sure it's got good drainage. This is back at the Han as well, down and through the meadow. Looks like a puff of smoke. Yes, I have too many photos, sorry. White cloud is a neat introduction that you can find. I love the pink, but maybe that doesn't work with your color scheme. And this photo was taken down at Hoffman's nursery in North Carolina, right at dark, and it just glowed, literally glowed. So I was very excited to see white cloud flowering. It was perfect timing. Pink flamingo is a hybrid Muhlenbergia between a couple species and has larger plumes on it. The plumes start out as pink and age to white. And because I'm never ashamed to show gardening mistakes I have made, which have been plenty, I think I have a whole talk on that. Mistakes I have made. So you don't have to. Don't put it right at a walkway that's very narrow. Here's mine. And thanks to the prevailing winds, yeah, you kind of can't get down our walkway. I feel bad for the UPS guy in the fall when it's blooming. I keep going every year. I need to move that. But the flowers are gorgeous, and they are fun also to cut and bring into it as an arrangement. Hakone grass, Hakone cloa macra. There's various cultivars. This was the perennial plant of the year in 2011. Hakone cloa macra aureola was. I put an exclamation point because a lot of folks across the Southeast struggle a bit with this grass. If you go to the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Washington State, you're just like, wow, this is amazing. It's so gorgeous. And then in the really, really warm Southeast, it can be a little tough. However, I have an option for that as we move through this. You're growing this for the foliage and the wonderful habit, just the waterfall habit that it has. The flowers are cute, but they're just kind of insignificant amongst the leaves. This is one of your few grasses. Everything I've shown you previously performs best in at least part shade, if not full sun. But this is a shade grass, so it looks wonderful with your hellebores and your hostas and things like that. Aureola is the most common cultivar, the variegated with gold and green. Again, kind of a classic shade perennial. just so neat. There's back over at Alyssa's. I didn't believe you could grow hackman grass in Virginia, but of course at Alyssa Steve's house you can grow anything and everything. But the habit again is so cool. All gold is a great newer alternative to areola as far as cultivars go. It's all gold, but very vigorous, and I think does a lot better. I've had much more success with it here. I've got some tiny little bits of macro areola, but all gold's much more vigorous, and I think you'll be easier to find in the trade. It also has a really nice little burgundy tint to it when it gets chilly. So all gold, more all gold. Love gold. Okay, let's take a few more questions.
All right. When does Dragon Arum bloom?
For it just bloomed. So again, if depending where you're at, you know, this in 6B in Blacksburg, it just got finished blooming. So it's I'd say early summer solstice bloom, smelly solstice.
Does prairie drop seed reseed all over, and how tall does it get?
It is, all right, that it does not reseed all over. In fact, at least for my experience, drop seed does sound a bit dangerous, doesn't it? But it does, I've not found it to be problematic at all. It stays in tidy clumps and probably 2 to 3 feet max. So it's going to be, it's a nice kind of front of your border type grass, midway. I'm trying to find something for scale here. Look, there's leaves on the grass there. So it's, no, not a huge grass and wider than it is tall. And again, the most of that height is when it flowers to maybe 3.5 feet tall, and it's nice, airy blooms. So.
Someone was asking for some companion plant ideas for muley grass.
It doesn't need a companion. It's so awesome. It needs companions before it blooms. Just anything, it goes great. I mean, it doesn't. I've got it in like more formal borders. You've got it in natural plantings. Here's with some coarser foliage. Just if you've got things that need good drainage, that will be showier maybe midsummer, like lavenders or salvias, rudbeckia, goldsturm or American gold rush or one of those, so that it kind of is like, oh, here's something awesome blooming in July, and then your Muhlenbergia will come along in the fall. But again, you know, the to it is good drainage. So pair it up with other plants that can tolerate good drainage. I would not put muley with Aurelia, the gold leaf one. That would not be a good pairing because it needs moisture.
Do deer eat it?
Muley, I have not seen deer eating it. And if anybody has had experience otherwise with it, please weigh in on the Q&A. I have not had problems with deer eating it, but the deer have a lot to choose from here.
Still a few more. If you want to keep going, you tell me.
Yeah, just a sec. I don't have a ton of annuals and tropicals, just a few little dibs and dabs. I put all my emphasis on the perennials up front.
Okay. Should you cut or burn pampas grass, and when?
Ooh. It depends on your local fire district rules. There is nothing more fun than setting afire a bunch of ornamental grasses. Even pulled it off at the Hawn Garden last year. Paul Tremlay, a horticulturist, did it self. And I think they let the fire department know so that they didn't show up. But it's a great way. It really rejuvenates a lot of ornamental grasses. And pampas grass, we can't grow that very well here. It's a little too chilly, but I'm very experienced with it from my time in Georgia and North Carolina. And that stuff will cut you. It is sharp. The edges are sharp. So if you are cutting it back, you can leave it up to kind of be something to look at in the winter, but you want to be sure you're cutting it back at least by February or so before the new foliage starts coming out. So either set that on fire or get in there with a long sleeve shirt very carefully and cut it back. So I'm assuming that the person asking the question is from a little warmer part of the country than here, but great question.
Does golden Persicaria spread?
Not very much. It's I would love it to be a little more rambunctious. This just forms a nice clump, just like the phlox that's next to it, and I haven't had trouble with it spreading. It's Amplexicaulis is the species Persicaria is kind of that kind of knotweed group, but this one is very well behaved, and I feel pretty confident that nobody's had it overrun their garden. I've never seen it reseed.
A few more comments, not really questions. Someone's chiming in saying their dog eats Hackana like crazy. Another person chiming in saying they have deer eating daffodils. And a follow-up to Hellebor's significant toxic concentrations only in roots. Animals foolish enough to nibble on leaves only get bitter taste.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah, our whippet bunny nibbles on grasses. I have not seen her near the hacking grass, so that was the best factoid. That was great. I love you guys. All right. I will go ahead and finish up with just a few annuals and tropicals. I was there's no way I can talk for 75 minutes. And then I'm sure everybody at Master Gardener College headquarters laughed. And then I started adding way too many slides and I had to cut a bunch. Anyway, let's get going. Thank you for hanging in there. Amaranthus. This is, I'm not going to talk to you about average bedding plants and things like that. Y'all know all that, and you've got your favorite tropicals and fabulous things too. These are just my personal things that I don't maybe see enough of out there, in my opinion. I love amaranthus, and yes, it seeds around a little bit, but it's an amaranthus and it's super easy to pull up. So Love Lies Bleeding, one of the best common names ever. How dramatic. Fun and easy. It's a great cut flower. Some of our local cut flower growers put it in their arrangements. Also, there's a green form that's super cool. There's a peach form, all kinds of things. It's just really dramatic and fun. And I like plants that kind of make your gardening friends go, wow, I wish I had thought of that. So easy to grow from a seed. Get a pack of seeds from Select Seeds or somewhere like that, or you can buy the smaller plants. It's actually something that I think starting from seed yourself is easier. It's not going to look very good at the nursery in the pot, so they're not going to sell a ton of it. But easy peasy, and it looks great in containers. Another amaranthus. This has been around for a few years, but I really, really love it. A very substantial plant, so not all annuals have to be little dinky bedding plants. This is something that if you've got some space on the back of your border or need something bigger, and you might be thinking about putting helianthus, sunflowers or something like that there, But this is just beautiful, and it really is hitting its stride in late summer. Again, a beautiful cut flower. Autumn palette comes in like it's a seed strain that's a range of bronzy tones to gold, and really easy from seed. There's a number of cultivars out there. I think the photo of this one, I think this is Hot Biscuits, another great cultivar name. But you can see this one's about 3.5, 4 feet tall. So it's just a fun texture plant. So it's something completely different that is really easy to grow. Nicotianas. I've been growing Nicotianas for a long time, and I've had yet another fit of it. Wave, I don't know what to call it. A Nicotiana fit. This is flowering tobacco. It is not smoking tobacco. This is a different species. Nicotiana tobacum is, I think that's right, is, oh, can't remember, is the smoking tobacco. But this is, deer do not care for it. I'm sure the leaves have quite a pungent flavor. But the thing that you grow this for in the garden is the fragrance. We have so few annuals left. It seems like all the fragrance is bred out of everything. This is something that you can start from a $2.50 pack of seeds yourself and really enjoy. They're super fast to grow yourself. You can get them going in a little cold frame or on your windowsill or whatever. And especially in the evening, put it under a window or near your deck or somewhere that you can really enjoy it. It's just, it's not the most stunning plant in the world, but to me, the fragrance is worth it. You'll see all kind of moths around it. I've seen hummers. Again, just very cool. So, and it does recede around a little bit. But you can, if it's where you don't want it, you can dig it up. The seeds are the size of dust. So if you are seeding it around directly in your garden, you may want to mix it with a little sand or something and then thin it out, kind of like poppy seeds, kind of on that teeny tiny level. Nicotiana elata, the species is great. There's been a lot of bedding plant introductions from it. It comes in purple and red and all kind of other colors. But again, that's been bred down to be more compact, and they've kind of lost, and more colorful, and they've kind of lost the fragrance. So if you can find just Nicotiana elata, the species, it's got a wonderful fragrance and about 3 feet tall or so. I think you might have seen it back when I was showing the color guard, after color guard photo. I had it in the background. This is one of my other favorites is lime green, and it does still retain its fragrance. You can find this from a number of seed purveyors, but this is just a fun color and so easy to work with in the garden. You just can't have, why would you have green flowers? It's really fun. It really makes other like pinks and purples pop. So, but it does, it's an old cultivar that's been around for a long time, and it does have a nice fragrance. Yay, very cool. One called woodland tobacco or shooting stars has these wonderful pendant flowers. It's even taller. This is a photo from right out back. Hasn't started blooming yet. Here, this one takes a little longer. It's probably a nice midsummer. It'll be happening in a few weeks. But again, kind of an interesting flower form, very different. And just love it, and so fragrant, so fragrant. And you can see how it does create a number of seed pods. And again, if you don't want it, reseeding or something, by the time they get brown and kind of crisp, you can just cut them off. But again, they'll just, if it's seeds just fall around the plant, you can get rid of them just like anything else, or give them to your friends. All right, just a few tropicals. Those are my two need to know seed grown. Tropicals, bananas, fabulous. for that tropical feel because they're bananas. Rojo is the most common one, easy to find. Doesn't get gigantic. Again, most of you probably are aware that these don't really create bananas. It's too, you've got to have really long warm spells for that to happen. So these are just grown for their foliage. It's just that really cool texture. And you can cut them back even if they get hit by a little bit of frost. You're like, oh, I got to bring in the bananas. You can move them in a container to your basement or houseplant or something like that. But definitely not hardy. Siam Ruby is a very cool cultivar that's been around for a little bit. It's just, it glows basically. It's beautiful reddish foliage with gold splashes and splotches on the foliage. So if you can find this, grab it. One of the bananas that do actually make bananas, and this would be for our friends probably more in the eastern part of Virginia and the warmer areas. One long hot summer here, we did get a couple of bananas, but pink velvet banana. These are really beautiful. It's beautiful. It's the most gorgeous banana you've ever seen. The foliage is green, but this hot pink banana cluster. They're very seedy. They're not tasty. I mean, if you're really needing to eat bananas, you could eat them. But the flower stalks are beautiful, and it's just really cute. But yeah, this is more of a zone 7, 7B, 8. If you're in Virginia Beach, you grow the heck out of this. Another banana is Encite, and this is a different species than Musa. The leaves arise from the base. Look at these huge paddle-shaped, I'm gonna have to act this out, paddle-shaped leaves that come up from the central stalk and really can take up some space. So this is a wonderful extrovert. And the thing about the bananas, and I'm about to talk about elephant ears too, hit them with enough moisture, a little bit of fish emulsion, compost, some form of nitrogen, and you will be rewarded rapidly with a really stunning accent plant. So Morellii is one of the Encites. This is fairly common as well. And if you've got a bright spot or an atrium, it does pretty darn well in the house too. We do have a hardy banana, hardy here in Blacksburg, Zone 6, Musa bascue. Just as after a freeze, you need to just cut that foliage back, give it a nice layer of mulch, and you will be rewarded by a 12 to 15 foot tall hardy banana plant. And it does send out offshoots, so that's a great thing. You can, these are called pups, and which is super cute, and you can dig them up and share them with your friends. So yeah, they'll send out little popping up around. So that was one of our favorite things at the garden at the end of the summer, to share those with some of our volunteers and students. There it is at the Hahn Garden. All right, elephant ears. I can't garden without these things. I overwinter them. You think that they're gone and you've got this pot with a bunch of dried out soil shoved into the basement, and then by golly, you start watering it again and it will arise. Fast, glorious, always released for our spring plant sale at Virginia Tech. If you're familiar at all with the elephant ears, you know there's 2 species. We've got colocaceous and alocasious. And the difference is there's a lot of things at the level that you may not care about, but it's easy to tell just visually. Most of the alocasias are held upright as the green one, and then our colocaceous are held more pendant. So usually at like a 45-degree angle or something. Also, the alocasias are usually connected at the base of the leaf, and the colocaceous are connected kind of more of a palmate situation. I can't believe I'm acting this out in a Zoom video. Okay, you should see me in class. All right, my very, very favorite still, been talking about this plant for over a decade because it's so fantastic. It's out there on the deck right now. Colocasia diamond head. Um, a terrible analogy is it looks like an oil slick. It is iridescent. It is shiny and gorgeous and has just so much texture. The leaves are up to 2 feet on a very happy plant. And this is, to me, one of the best garden extroverts there are. You can put it with any combination of anything and look like a genius. So I love it. Uh, Blue Hawaii is another fabulous one. And these all came out of Dr. John Cho's breeding program at the University of Hawaii, where he was mostly breeding colocasias for taro, and just started kind of fooling around on the side with some ornamental types and came out with this whole wonderful series. And there's many of them out there, but this is one of the best ones too. Mojito, and it's about mojito time, isn't it? This is wonderful. It can go in a container, it can go in the ground. It can also tolerate some standing water. So not all colocasias can. They'll rise in the rot. But this is back over at Alyssa's house. But she's got hers in about 3 inches of water. It's in a pot. But boy, is it happy. And it really loves that, having all that moisture. And again, these leaves get to 1.5 to 2 feet if it's happy. So just a really splendid plant, and easier to find now too. A lot of folks are growing it. And once you have it, again, as you can see around the base, it's making some pups as well. So this is a great grow and share. Grow and share with your friends. Backlit, you can't beat it. Thai giant used to be super unusual, and everybody would pay like $30 at Plant Delights for it. A little easier to find now. Sorry about that. I have to lose my voice. But again, it's the alocasia with these giant upright leaves, and it gets big fast. Those of you who have seen it, Lisa's been using it at the Han Garden for many years, and I'm sure there are plantings in municipalities all over the place, and Norfolk Botanic Garden and everything. But yeah, it's just so much fun, and you can go from literally a 1-gallon pot to huge honkin' plant in one summer. So again, can't beat it. It's a great investment, and then try to overwinter it so you don't have to buy it again. So the flowers are very cool too, and everybody just looks at the foliage and goes, ah. But the flowers on an alocasia usually has multiple flowers and in clusters under the foliage. So really cute, typical aroid type flower. Again, in mixed plantings, it's really fantastic. I think this was down in Durham at the Duke Garden. And my very last fun extrovert is Cyperus pepperifera, sometimes called rice paper plant. This is king tut, and it gets big, up to 6 feet, but again, airy and see-through. You can grow in a container, you can put it in shallow water in a pond or a bog and be rewarded with these really, really beautiful, unusual flowers. And that is borders on Muppet-like in just the best way. And interestingly, the Cyperus, they actually, those aren't, what you're looking at are little pseudostems, and then there's little flowers that appear on the end of it. And this was from several years ago, but a great arrangement at a trade show where they had harvested the stems and done a very cool job of painting them to look like fireworks. So if you've got some king tut, you can make your own painted fireworks for the 4th of July. So with that, I am ending up, and I hope it was inspiring. It was quite potpourri of plants, but all favorites of mine. And I really appreciate you all tuning in this Thursday afternoon and listening to me ramble on about plants, because it does my heart really good to do it. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Holly. That was wonderful. We do still have some questions and comments in the Q&A feed if you're willing to stay on a little bit longer.
Sure.
Okay, we have someone joining us from North Carolina, and they're in a 7B zone looking for recommended perennials in a boggy area. How about that one?
Ooh. The sedges, for one thing, Cyperaceae, there are so many cool sedges out there now. Carex, there are upright ones. If this was on a phone, I swear we'd be running outside right now and we'd be showing you some cool Carex. But look up Carex, Carex. One of the finest grass and Carex nurseries in the country is right down there in Rougemont, Hoffman's nursery. And they are the source of many, many, many cool ones. And but yeah, so for a boggy area, you can't beat that. Any of the ligularias, which that genus, they have broken up a few times. Ligularias have very large glossy leaves. There's some with highly serrated leaves, lots of cool things, but they love wet feet. They kind of flag if they don't get wet feet. And if it's not too awfully boggy, I would plop one of those Aurelia Sun Kings in there and see what happens. It seems to really enjoy moisture as well. And of course, if you have access to pitcher plants at all, I'm sure Plant Delights down there south of Raleigh would love to sell you some. But pitcher plants, Sarracenias are wonderful, and they are about impossible to grow unless you have a boggy area. So take advantage of that.
All right, next question is, what perennials do you suggest for fragrance?
Let's see. I do like phlox. There are, it seems like some of our spring bloomers are more fragrant. Of course, a lot of the bulbs are, but it's just not tons of fragrant perennials out there. But there are some, and I'm really drawing a blank. I think, why don't y'all weigh in on the Q&A, because I am running out of gas on that one. But I do love phlox. Shoot, I'll think of like 10 of them in the shower tonight. I'm so sorry.
It's been a long day already.
It would be just stupid of me to be like, hang on, let me Google this. But yeah, no, of course, the number one fragrant perennial is lavender. And if you're in, if you have decent, well-drained spot and zone 6 or warmer, I've got lavender all over the place. I've killed more than I've had survive, but it's worth it every year just because of the fragrance. And
someone suggesting common milkweed.
Sleepius syriacus. Yes, that's got a bit of a fragrance to it. Yep. I think that's the right species.
Fragrant daylilies.
I guess they're out there. I don't have many daylilies. I have one called Bram Stoker, and that's about just because of the name.
Daphne, Odora.
Right. I would put that in a woody category. But there's nothing more fragrant than that. And if you can grow it, it's really marginal here. You got to cod a little on. But yeah, if you're in zone 7, and I forget, there's get into many, many woodies and your gardenias and your daphnes and all that we can't grow here in 6.
Lily of the Valley.
Yep, you got to get down on your hands and knees for that. Unless you got a big honking patch of it. No, but that's why it's a favorite cut stem for wedding bouquets. You can just tuck a few Lily of the Valley in there and it will. So yeah, great.
Will the king tut overwinter hold up outside?
Depends where you're at. It doesn't here. It's one of those that I just kind of let get, let it go to sleep, and then try to keep it alive through the winter, like in a cool basement or something. I don't think it's cold hardy here. I think it's more like a zone 8.
Question related to the bananas. How far do you cut them back for storing in the winter?
Okay, so that's a really good one. Well, they're all good questions. They're all great questions. For the ones outside, and this is how I do it. Don't do what I say. I kind of let the frost hit it. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just too busy. I just feel like if you let the frost hit it, but before the ground freezes, that foliage is going to kind of get burnt and kind of get mushy. And you kind of have this obvious place to go in and give it a trim back. And dig it up. Of course, if you want to make it into a house plant, you need to remember to dig it up before that happens. But I think most of them, if the ground doesn't freeze, you're still good. So I just feel like it's sort of, and this is completely not based in science. I have no idea where I got this notion from. That I just feel like that it sort of starts going a bit dormant once it gets colder temperatures. So I feel like I'm not hurting it. That was a terrible answer. It's just so hard if it's gorgeous and all gorgeous looking to go cut it back. So that's why I think I just wait till it's like, oh, it's mush. I'm gonna go cut it back now.
We have a question about the plant list, and yes, Holly did provide a plant list, and it's posted on the Canvas site. So after the session is over, or if you go back to the recordings, you can find that listed there in a section titled "Additional Handouts and Other Materials."
Yep.
So thank you, Holly, for that.
Yep, and everything's on it. I think the only late add was the Rudbeckia maxima. So, but everything else is on there that I talked about. All righty.
We've got a few more. I don't think we're going to get to them all. We've got like 2 minutes before 4 o'clock. So
I'm so glad people are hanging in there with
yeah.
us. Oh.
How would elephant ear do on a deck with little sun? Not totally dark, but never much direct sun.
I think it's fine. In fact, I've got it on a covered deck, and I think it gets maybe very late afternoon, and that's the diamond head, and also another one. I've had mojito in the shade as well. I think they actually do okay. Mine looked great last year. The Calibrachoa around its feet was not happy. I ended up replacing it with a nice vegetative coleus, but the elephant ear looked great.
Best plant for a barrel of water on a deck.
Ooh, get a lotus. Lotus, if you've got one of those lovely patio ponds, as we call them, if you've heard of Springdale Water Gardens, perchance, that's right here in Virginia, I think Fishersville, they sell mail order lotus. I actually went up there and fetched a couple. Lotus can be very aggressive in a pond, but they're perfect in a container. And there's many cultivars out there that have been a little more reduced size. So you can get the beautiful tropical foliage and the gorgeous lotus flowers, and the best part's the lotus seed pods. Just remember to throw a mosquito dunk in your barrel of water every once in a while.
Well, Holly, I think we're pushing right against 4 o'clock. There were a few more questions, and sorry to everyone that we did not get to, but this was fantastic. Thank you again for joining us after opening day at the Blueberry Farm. And as always, it's wonderful to see you, and we have some fantastic comments in the chat box saying the same. So thank you for a job well done.
Well, I wish I could see all of you out there. And again, thank you. And we hope that you'll tune in. I know you'll be excited and enjoy the rest of all the fantastic offerings. Splendid job on putting together this virtual Master Gardener College. And it's so much that I personally want to be seeing as well. And maybe we'll see you Sunday afternoon as we close out things.
Yeah. Hope to see you Sunday. Thanks, Holly. Everyone, take care.
All right.